remember the exact moment that I stopped wanting to be Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Yes. I remember. Now, right now you're thinking, what a way to start a message, and you're like, our pastor has lost his mind. That may be debatable. But I'm going somewhere with this, okay? All right, Willis, so don't get up and leave yet. I saw you getting ready to. Brutus the Barber Beefcake was my favorite wrestler, but I remember the day that I stopped wanting to be him. I was 8 years old. It was in June of 1986. My family had just bought a brand new house, and we started to move into that house. At the time, my parents were there, and my grandparents were there helping us move and settle in. And I met a new friend that lived right down the street. His name was Kevin Caladonis. Now, Kevin was also 8 years old, and he also, like me, was big wrestling fans. So we decided that we were going to play. We've seen it on TV. It looks pretty easy. We were going to play wrestling in the front yard. And I automatically said, I'm Brutus the Barber Beefcake. His response was, I'm Hulk Hogan. Miss Linda, I right there nixed that. Because as you know, and I know, Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake are friends, and they do not wrestle each other. Everybody wants to be Hulk Hogan. And I was like, no, Kevin, you can't be Hulk Hogan. I nixed it. And then I suggested, I said, who you should be is King Kong Bundy. He said, I don't want to be King Kong Bundy. And we started going through different wrestlers, and we settled on him being Bam Bam Bigelow. So here we are. We are squaring off Brutus the Barber Beefcake versus Bam Bam Bigelow. And we were doing clotheslines and elbow drops and knee drops. Now, we knew it was fake, okay? If that's brand new information for you, I can't help you. We were 8 and we knew. So we got to the point of the match, and we already knew the finish. Brutus Beefcake's going to win. He is the baby face. That's the good guy. Bam Bam Bigelow is the heel. That's the bad guy. All right. So he clotheslined me, and I laid there on the ground. And I said, Bam Bam Bigelow, off the top rope, belly splash. Because Brutus Beefcake was about to make his comeback. What happened next, I was not prepared for, because Kevin Caladonis went full Bam Bam Bigelow, and with all of his weight, he belly splashed on top of me right on my stomach. This was not how I pictured it. I've watched the television, I've seen the pay-per-views, and when that happens, Brutus Beefcake gets back up like after a few seconds. It's not a big deal. When Kevin Caladonis went full Bam Bam Bigelow on me, and I want you to picture 8-year-old Jimmy getting, just for dramatic effects, the full Bam Bam Bigelow jumping on 8-year-old Jimmy Lloyd. For the first time in my life, the wind was knocked out of me. I did not know what was going on. Kevin got up. He knew right away that I wasn't doing good. Why? Because I was crying after I caught my breath. I got up, and I walked into my house, and I passed my dad, because I know what my dad would have said. He's been like, it's wrestling. What do you expect? No sympathy. He's here in case you want to side-eye him. But my grandparents were there. And the same lady that we named our kitchen after, my Mama Pat, my grandmother, she was there. And I thought, if I'm going to get sympathy from anybody, Kevin Caladonis better be home by now, because I'm about to tell Mama Pat what happened. I came in there, I was crying. She goes, baby, what's wrong? I said, I was Brutus the Barber Beefcake. I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, well, Jimmy, maybe you should stop trying to be like Brutus the Barber Beefcake and try to be like Jesus. Not what an 8-year-old wanted to hear. Kevin Caledonis got off scot-free. But how many, something goes on in your life, you've had something happen, and you expected it to turn out one way, and it turned out completely different. This is not how it's supposed to be. Right? I'm not the only one. Am I? And yeah, I'm sure you can name several things when this happened. Somebody in the first service was like, marriage. And I was like, amen, brother. We didn't say it out loud because his wife was there. And I knew it would get back to Julie. So we just looked at each other, but we knew. But a lot of times, our Christian walk can be like that. Because we get into a relationship with Jesus, and we kind of expect this magic Jesus dust to be sprinkled on us. It's like, man, now everything is going to go smooth. I am going to lose the 5 extra pounds that I could not lose before. I am going to find the perfect wife or husband. I'm going to get married to the most beautiful person. My kids are never going to act up again. My wife or husband is going to agree with me 100% of the time. Never going to happen. And now I'm going to have multiple streams of income. My life is good. And then, all of a sudden, it doesn't work out the way you thought. Have you ever prayed for something and it got worse? And you're like, God, I don't know if you heard me. I don't know if I need to write it down on a postcard and put it in the offering plate, or what I need to do. Add an extra $100 because that's what the preacher on TV told me to do. But it's just getting worse. Anybody else ever had that? You pray for something and it gets worse? You're like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about, Jimmy. Maybe this is a message for another church, or maybe somebody watching online. But I know I have. I know it's happened. Now, I was thinking this the other day. Wouldn't it be great if when those things happen in our lives and we could talk to somebody that actually walked with Jesus in the flesh? Like if we could go to one of the 12 disciples and we could talk to them about what's going on right now, oh man, that'd be awesome. They'd probably be able to tell us. Like if we could talk to them face to face. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was wanting to talk to one of the disciples when I was upset about something, you know who I'd pick? Peter. Yeah, I'd pick, if anybody knows what I'm going through, Peter, right? So let's look, 1 Peter 4:12. 1 Peter 4:12. It says, Peter, all this stuff's going on. All hell's breaking loose. What do I do? Peter 4:12. Dear friends, don't be surprised at the fiery trials you are going through, as if something strange were happening to you. Peter is writing this. He is talking to both Gentiles and Jews, but mainly Gentiles that have just now, for the first time, starting to experience a relationship with Jesus, and they are like, it's not going how we thought it would. Things are falling apart. I thought this Jesus thing was real. I thought it was legit. I thought everything was supposed to go fine now. And Peter's saying, oh, you guys are having a hard time? Can we go back to the other verse? Jumping ahead, Mark Peterson, don't rush me. Dear friends, don't be surprised. What he's saying is a lot of times stuff goes wrong and we get surprised and we are shocked and we start to think it's strange that bad things are happening to us. What? I'm supposed to be a Christian. Why is this? But, a lot of times we just think, okay, everything's supposed to go, it's supposed to be smooth sailing from here. But we are called to walk in the footsteps of Jesus. And as we can read in the Bible, those footsteps don't always lead to the easiest paths. He says, dear friends, don't be surprised at the fiery trials you're going through, as if something strange was going to happen to you. He's saying a lot of times things go wrong, we think it's strange, and then what happens is we get surprised by it, and then we think, I have to fix it. And then we try to fix it ourselves. Anybody else ever try to do that? Anybody right now in a current situation, you're trying to fix it yourself? Yeah. Yeah. Then I like how he puts it in the Message Bible. Some people don't like the Message Bible. I love the Message Bible. I love how Eugene Peterson puts it. The words of Peter, 1 Peter 4:12, the Message Bible says, friends, when life gets really difficult, don't jump to conclusions that God isn't on the job. Instead, be glad that you are in the very thick of what Christ experienced. This is a spiritual refining process with glory just around the corner. Now, if I was talking to Peter, this last part would have got to me, because I would have been like, out of all the people that I expect to give me some church language, it's not you, Peter. Like, I need the hot-headed disciple that we've grown to love, Peter. Like, I need, the sword-swinging, ear-cutting off, boat-jumping Peter. Where's that guy? You ever get upset and someone you haven't even talked to for a year, but you're like, oh, if anybody knows how I feel, it's going to be Chelsea. And I'm going to call Chelsea, and we're going to tell her that because she's been through this, and I know she's going to be like, yeah, I can't believe they did that. I can't believe this happened. Right? Because, a lot of times when we're going through something like this, we don't necessarily want advice. We want somebody to agree with us and feel the same. We want somebody to feel it, feel our pain. So here's me. I get to pick out of the 12 disciples. I pick Peter. I'm looking for hot-headed Peter. I don't get hot-headed Peter. I get grown-up, mature Peter. Friends, when life gets really difficult, don't jump to conclusions. What he's saying is, a lot of times things go bad, things go haywire, all hell breaks loose, and then our perspective gets warped, and we think, well, God, you just don't care about me. I see everybody else around me. They're experiencing good stuff. Their finances are growing. They're getting healed. I guess God just don't care about me. We jump to conclusions. And he says, don't do that. Don't think God's not on the job. Instead, be glad. Are you serious, Peter? Are you serious? Pee-wee, I know you're upset right now. I know you're really mad at Debbie. I don't blame you. But why don't we turn that frown upside down, buddy? Because glory's just around the corner. Who wants to hear that? If you want to hear that, oh my gosh, you are like the second coming or something. I don't know. Seriously, we want someone to feel our pain. Peter, I need somebody to fight. Trust. Come on, Jimmy. We'll take them on together. We'll do some prank phone calls. We'll egg their house. Yeah, that's the Peter I need. But no, listen to the tones like, hey, buddy. Is life difficult? Yeah, Peter, it is. Glory's right around the corner. Don't even worry about it. Now look at this, 1 Peter 4:19. This is what he says. It says, so if you find life difficult because you're doing what God said, take it in stride. Trust him. He knows what he's doing. He'll keep on doing it. Hey, Jimmy, are you finding life difficult right now? Yeah, Peter. That's why I'm talking to you. I got just the thing. Take it in stride. Trust God. He knows what he's doing. You just keep doing you, and he's going to keep doing him. He's in this. Thanks, Peter. A master's class in how to handle difficult situations, Peter. Thank you, buddy. Seriously. Come on. I need you to feel something, Peter. And Peter's just like, hey, Jimmy, let's bring it down a little bit. Come on. But that's the opposite of what my brain says, because what happens is when things don't work out how I thought it should work out in my mind, my brain says, this is not working. You got to do something about it. You got to change things up. And I'm just telling you right now, if I was talking face to face with Peter, I would be like, does this Peter dude even get it? Does he even understand? You ever talk to somebody and you're talking to them about what's going on, and they're just like, they have like a totally different perspective of it, and you're just like, Pastor Rocky just don't get it. He don't understand. He's never gone through anything like this. You ever had that happen? That's how I would be if I was talking face to face with Peter. Peter, do you even understand? Well, I'll say that he does, because there's this really cool story in Acts chapter 3, where Peter is just hanging out with his boy John. It's in the afternoon. They're probably watching Judge Judy, because what else are you going to do in the afternoon? John looks over at Peter and says, oh my goodness, Peter, we got caught up in Judge Judy. It's almost 3 o'clock. Now, why is that significant? Because at 3 o'clock was the 3 o'clock prayer, and they were serious about the 3 o'clock prayer. So Peter and John, they scurry on over to the temple. Now, I know a lot of you don't know what scurrying is, because I see you walking in at 11:20 p.m. for church. Oh, I see you. You didn't think I saw you. You just slipped in. You don't know what scurrying is. My kids have no idea what scurrying is. There is no scurrying in their bones. All right? It's like, hey, we got to hurry up. It's just slow as molasses. They scurry on over to the temple. They get to the gate at the temple. The gate, they named it Beautiful. I have no idea why. It must be a pretty gate. Like, whew, that gate's beautiful. Or either that, or they just hurried up and named it. They get to the gate. All right? When they get to the gate, there is this dude that people are carrying in that has been crippled since he was born. From the beginning, he was crippled. It's in Acts 3:2. It says, as they came to the entrance called the Beautiful Gate, they were captured by the sight of a man crippled from birth being carried and placed at the entrance of the temple. He was often brought there to beg for money and from those going into worship. Now, I just want to point this out. This dude was not going there for a healing. He was not even planning on going into the temple. This seems to me like it's an everyday thing. He knows. He's like, okay, those church people are going to be going to the temple at this time. So his buddies are going to take him and put him in front of the gate because, hey, I know those church folk, their heart's going to be moved and they're going to give me money. A lot of times we get upset. Like, man, those people are just coming to church so they can get a free meal. Oh, they're just coming in for this or that. Dude, who cares? They're here. There's a possibility that this wasn't even his friends. Maybe this was like this church group. Like hey, we're going to get this new group. Like, we're going to bring those that can't walk to the temple so that they can. Maybe this was something like a church guy got together to bring him there. Why? Because everybody knows pastors do evangelistic counting, right? And even though he's not in there, hey, we're going to still count the guy outside. Like, he's already there. Sometimes if he moves a little bit or if you move him from one place to the other, you get it counted twice. It's just the unwritten rule. I don't have time to go into church mathematics. But he's not there to get healing. He comes in, Acts 3:2. Peter and John see him. Then we go to verse 3 and 4. I don't gotta wait for you, Mark Peterson, because I got it right here. He actually was right on it, but I was planning on going here, and I said that to buy some time. Verse 3. I got to find it now. That would have been so much quicker to read it from the screen, but I am not going to now, just out of spite. Guys, I'm in church here. Like, I'm not perfect. We can talk about your problems if you want to. It says, when he noticed Peter and John going into the temple, he begged them for money. All right. Peter and John looking straight into the eyes of the crippled man. When I read this, I thought, why is that even in there? I believe it's significant because this guy, probably for years, nobody has looked this guy in the eyes. They've thrown coins down, they've handed him dollar bills, but nobody's looked him in the eyes. We don't even get a name here. But they look him in the eyes, and then they tell him, look at us, because he's not used to looking at people either. His head's down. There's a lot of shame there. He don't want to be there. He don't want to be begging for money. He says, look at us. Now, though, he said, look at us. So what I would think, if I was looking for money and you said, look at me, it'd be like, oh, this dude wants me to know that it's him giving it to me. He might be handing me a $100 bill right here. So I'd pay attention. So is this guy. Expecting a gift, he readily gave them his attention. Then Peter said, I don't have any money. What was going through his head at this moment? Like, you don't got no money? You wasting my time? You see, that's why I'm here, right? He says, I don't have money, but I'll give you this. By the power of the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, stand up and walk. Peter held out his right hand to the crippled man, and he pulled the man to his feet. Suddenly, power surged into the crippled feet and ankles. The man jumped up, stood there for a moment, stunned, and then began to walk. And he went to the temple courts with Peter and John, and he leaped for joy and shouted praises to God. Now, you're like, Jimmy, why in the world are you telling me this story? Because your message, if I remember when you started with Brutus the Barber Beefcake, this was a story about things not going right. And it looks like to me everything's going right for both Peter, for both John, and especially for the dude that was crippled. From the outside, it looks like it. And maybe you're right now, we got this social media scoreboard that we all look at and we compare our lives to. And we look at people's lives on the outside, the lives that they want us to see. And we're like, oh, why can't my life be like them? And it looks all good. And we're comparing the inside of our lives to the outside of their lives. There's no comparison. But right now, you're doing that. And probably the best thing for you to do is right now go and delete those accounts. Because you keep comparing that, and the enemy's telling you, is like, see, you must be doing something wrong. Because Matt, look at all this good stuff happening to Matt. Oh, L-Dog, everything's good happening with L-Dog. That's why he's sitting on the front row. But your life's a mess. So we do that comparison. So from the outside, right now, it looks like everything's going good for Peter and John. Not so much. Because what happens is the word gets back quickly to the religious police, to the religious rulers, and they don't like it much. Because one, Peter and John, they weren't trained by us. They shouldn't even be praying for people. Who do they think they are? Everybody in the temple's like all excited. They're all screaming, yelling. They start telling people about Jesus. In the middle of them speaking in the temple, the religious police come up and they arrest Peter and John. They arrest them, and they spend overnight in jail. And I don't know if you've ever spent overnight in jail. Does not sound like fun. Yes, I heard someone, it's not fun, yeah. Try a few years, Pastor. They didn't do anything wrong. Then the council got together, all these religious leaders, and they're like, what are we going to do? They're not guilty of anything. We got to let them go. But they come up with a plan before they let them go. Check this out. They're like, we got to let them go. There's nothing we can charge them for. Everybody saw what happened. They performed the signs and wonders. This miracle happening. But I think we can still play this in our favor. So, Acts chapter 4, verse 18. It says, so they had them brought back in before the council, and they commanded them to never teach the people or speak again using the name of Jesus. But Peter and John replied this. They said, you can judge for yourselves. Is it better to listen to you or to God? And then check this out. This had to be Peter right here saying this. It is impossible for us to stop speaking about all the things we've seen and heard. Some of you, you're there right now. God has done so much in your life. There is so much change that has happened, things you didn't ever think you've gotten back. He's redeemed things you never thought would be redeemed. And people's like, you need to stop talking about this Jesus guy. And you're like, no, it is impossible. It is impossible to stop talking about it because he has done so much in my life. And you're like, I will not be quiet. It is impossible. So they decide, hey, we're going to do this. Before we release them, they didn't like that answer too much, but they're like, all right, we're going to release them, but let's try this thing again. So then verse 21, it says, since the members of the council couldn't come up with a crime they could punish them for, they threatened them once more. Some of you, like, the enemy has been throwing all these threats at you, saying, oh yeah, you're not changed. Jesus didn't change you. The blood does not clean you. You're still that who you used to be. He keeps throwing the past at you, saying that's who you are. Everybody knows that's who you are. You have no business being in church. And he's throwing all these threats, and I just want to say, I almost titled my message this, they are empty threats. They mean nothing. The enemy keeps throwing this stuff at you. It means nothing. They throw this empty threat at Peter and John. And all the people praise God, thrilled over the miraculous healings of the crippled man. Now, I want to say this. I had a paper. Did it fall? Here it is. I did not do that. I wrote this during worship. There's something interesting about this story. I wasn't planning on going into it. Yes, Elliot, I am watching my time. I can feel your eyes just staring at me. It's like this wasn't planned. Verse 22, we don't have it on the screen because I wasn't planning on doing this. But I found this interesting that it's even in here. And it says, and the man who received this miracle sign of healing was over 40 years old. Why are you telling us his age? Like, how does that's like wasted space, right? So I looked up 40 because numbers is significant, all these numbers in the Bible. I looked up 40. You know what 40 stands for? In the Bible, it stands for transformation and completeness through testing. Transformation and completeness through testing. It's significant. Jesus was tempted for 40 days. Noah faced the flood for 40 days. Moses met with God at Sinai 40 days. Israel wandered in the desert 40 days. Elijah fasted 40 days. Jesus took 40 days and appeared to the followers, teaching them that the day of completeness and transformation had arrived. How many of you are over 40 years old? I feel like God's telling me this. I felt like it during praise and worship when we were singing Fight Your Battles. God's saying, you better get ready. You better get ready because it's transformation and completeness has been fulfilled. You have been tested. You have went through these trials, but He's not done with you, and He's about to do something amazing that's about to blow your mind. We got any 40-year-olds here? Any 40-year-olds? Come on. Violet, I don't know if you remember this. We were at another church at the time. I was a youth pastor. On my 40th birthday, it was on a Friday, I believe. It was around there, or maybe I was getting ready to. Julie threw me this really cool surprise party, but it was at the youth, and Violet and Gary would cook the youth food every Friday night. And I was turning 40, and Violet goes, you know, there's significance in 40. And she said, God's about to do something amazing. Do you remember that, Violet? Just a couple months later, just a few months later, we started the Blueprint Experience. And then I'm 44 right now. Did you say God's done something in the past 4 years? That was a prophetic statement, Violet. I'll never forget that. 40. Some of you, you're going through all this stuff, and God's saying, oh, I'm still working. I'm moving in the background. You just don't know. You just don't see it. But I got something in store for you. 40 is significant. Now, I wonder, Pastor Rocky, maybe Peter and John, maybe if they ever seen something like when they were walking around with Jesus that was similar to this. Like, I wonder if this is just like something that this revelation they got, or I wonder if they've ever saw like anything similar to this happen. I don't know. Do you know? Did they ever? Oh, yeah, that's right. There's this cool story, this famous story in John chapter 5, where Jesus goes to this pool. They call it the Pool of Bethesda. Now, I just want to show you the timeline here. Because Jesus and the disciples, they went from Samaria. Remember 2 weeks ago I spoke about the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman. So they went, Jesus and his disciples were in Samaria. He told this lady, hey, the living water you're looking for, it's right here. Then he goes from there, they go to Galilee, and this official from Capernaum comes up to him, is like, my son is sick, and Jesus heals his son. He's in Galilee. From Galilee, Jesus and his disciples went to Jerusalem. And in Jerusalem, there was this place called the Pool of Bethesda, and Jesus and his disciples walked on up into that courtyard at the pool. And we find that story in John chapter 5. It's here. I got it marked. John chapter 5, verse 1. It says, from Galilee, Jesus returned to Jerusalem to observe one of the Jewish feasts. Inside the city, near the sheep gate, there was a pool called in Aramaic, the house of loving kindness, surrounded by 5 covered porches. Now, why does this matter? 5 covered porches. Now, this is a non-fictional story. That means this story has really happened. This is a real event that took place. But it is also symbolic of the lives we live. Because 5 covered porches that these hundreds of sick people were underneath, well, in the law, there's 5 books of the law. And at the time, there was people living under the law. And still today, there are people living under the law that are sick and that are dying and have not experienced the life that Jesus has for them because they're still living under the law and they have not experienced this relationship and the realness of Jesus. So they were under these 5 covered porches, which I believe represents the 5 books of the law. Hundreds of sick people were lying under the covered porches. The paralyzed, the blind, the crippled, all of them waiting for their healing. Why were they there waiting for their healing? Because every once in a while, periodically, this angelic presence would come down and descend on the pool and stir this pool up, and it would start to bubble like someone just added Mr. Bubble Bath to it. And the first person that would get into this pool after this happened, they would be healed. But just the first person. If somebody beat you to it, you missed out. You just got wet. You didn't get healed. So Jesus walks into this area. He comes to the pool, and there's this dude that has been paralyzed for 38 years. That's a long time. Just in case anybody doesn't know. I've lived 38 years, plus 38 years is a long time. And he's sitting there. John 5:6, it says this. When Jesus saw him lying there, he knew that the man had been crippled for a long time. Jesus said to him, do you truly long to be well? In other words, he said, do you want to be healed? Now, I would think, the same thing that you would think, that this guy, when Jesus talked to him, he'd be like, yes! Because if you're going through something right now, and I said, hey, you want to be healed? Hey, Kalani, you want to be healed? He'd be like, yeah! But this guy didn't do that. He didn't say that at all. This was his response. It says, the sick man answered, sir, there's no way I can get healed, for I have no one to lower me into the water when the angel comes. As soon as I try to crawl to the edge of the pool, someone else jumps ahead of me. He didn't answer the question at all. Jesus asked him, do you want to be healed? And he started giving the reasons why he couldn't be healed. Now, I used to think this is a story about faith, but it's not. It's a story about grace. Because this guy had faith. 38 years, he's seen people get healed that got into the pool first. He just stopped believing that the healing was meant for him. And I believe there's some people here today that you're just like, well, I've seen other people get healed. I know God's real. I know the healing power is real, but I guess it's not for me. God's saying, no, it's for you. This is what we do a lot of times. Jesus comes to us and says, hey, do you want your life to change? And we start to give him the realities and the circumstances of our lives. And we're like, well, Jesus, I mean, you know my financial situation, like my credit scores in the low 400s, you know, and I don't have a car, and nobody's going to hire me because I can't get there. And, I mean, you know my spouse, right? Like, you know my wife. You know my husband, you know. And besides, you know what happened to me when I was a kid? My mom left. Or, you know, I don't even know who my dad is. And we start throwing all these circumstances, and Jesus is like, no, you misunderstood. Do you want me to change your life? This guy gives him the circumstances and the problems of his life. He's like, it's never. What this guy's really saying to Jesus is, listen, if you want to hang out for a while, I don't really got many friends. Every now and then somebody walks around, they give me like a sandwich, a bologna sandwich. They throw some coins at me. But I've been here for 38 years. I don't got anybody to put me in that water. But if you want to hang out, and when that water starts to stir, when it starts to bubble, you pick me up and throw me in that would be great. Can you imagine what that looked like? Like, people around there, they knew the history of this. I'll tell you right now, as a parent right now, if I had a kid that was sick, I'd pick up that kid. I'd pick up Addison. I'd pick up Aiden. I'd pick up Kinsley. I'd walk over to that pool, and I don't care how long I had to wait. I'd just stand there like this. And I'd wait for that thing to start to bubble, and I'd just drop them. That's what I'd do. Yeah, God, I want my kid to get healed. Think how many times this guy's seen that happen? He's like, that's unfair. I've been here for 38 years. Like, shouldn't we come up with some kind of number system? Like some kind of line, you know? No, it was like a healing lottery, you know? So, of course, he wasn't, like, really excited. He was focusing on the pool, and he failed to realize that living water was standing right there in front of him. He was focused on the pool and working out and the healing. If he got healed, had to work out this way. And he failed to see the person standing in front of him was the one that controls this and so much more. So what did Jesus do? Check this out. Jesus said to him, stand up. He never even answered. I'd been like, Jesus, like, repeat the question. Make him answer it at least. Jesus didn't do that. He said to him, stand up. Pick up your sleeping mat, and you'll walk. Immediately, he stood up, and he was healed. So he rolled up his mat, and he walked away. Now, Jesus worked this miracle on the Sabbath. Guys, y'all can clap for that. I know y'all don't like clapping. It's like some kind of thing. Now, guys, this right here, you know what this is a picture of? It's a picture of salvation. Because when Jesus comes in and saves you, he saves you completely. Yes. Now, here's the cool thing. I was looking at this, and Jesus didn't unparalyze the man. And you're like, what are you talking about? Blasphemy. No, he didn't unparalyze the man. Because I don't know if you've ever been around somebody that hasn't walked for 38 years or walked for a while. Their legs are really small. Atrophy set in. They have not used their legs for so long. And there's not one time where you see this guy. Jesus says, get up, stand up, walk. And this guy's like, oh my goodness, I haven't used these for a while. Like, oh. You don't see that happen immediately. Jesus didn't unparalyze him. At that moment, Jesus gave this dude new ligaments, new joints, new bones, and new muscles. He got brand new pair of legs. That's what happened. He didn't even have to work them out. Everybody hates leg days. I'll just say that right now. Nobody likes leg days. If you do, more power to you. Don't call me to do them with you. This is to be healed. Now, this is being a picture of salvation because so many of us, we were spiritually paralyzed. Jesus comes in, and just at once, he gives us new ligaments, new muscles. He totally gives us a new heart for him, and he changes us, and he totally saves us. Now, you would think everybody would be happy. Like this guy, how do you think this guy felt? I talked to this with the youth on Wednesday, and one of them, it really thought that they said he probably was scared, or he probably was depressed because he had been laying there for 38 years. And I thought about that, and I was like, man, I love hanging out with the teenagers because they think of stuff that I haven't thought of. But so many times it's like we say we want to be healed, but that sickness or whatever that is, that vice has become our identity. And then if just the thought of it being taken away, it's like, what will I do? That's what people know me for. What will I talk about? They're like, I'd just rather just stay laying down. Now, what I think if it would happen to me, I'd be pretty excited. I'd be like wanting to show off my legs. Jesus told him to pick up his mat and walk. Now, you would think everybody would be excited about him. Now, this happened on the Sabbath. Why is that significant? Because the religious leaders put all these laws in, added all these new laws that weren't originally in the Torah. And you're not supposed to work on the Sabbath, but they made it where you're not even supposed to carry anything over a certain weight on the Sabbath. And a mat counted as that. So here's this dude walking around. The religious leaders see him. They're like, whoa, dude. What you doing carrying that mat around? And it's like, what are you talking? Like, you know who I am, right? Like, you've been walking past me for 38 years. You throw me some quarters every once in a while. Never could give me $1, could you? Like, what? You know, some people, they fail to see the progress that you have made, and they only see the mistakes that you make. Now, I will say this. It's kind of Jesus' fault that he was noticed, right? I mean, Jesus healed him, but why did he pick up his mat? Like, why did you tell him to pick his mat up? Like, why don't you just leave it there for the next guy? I mean, that'd be kind of disgusting, but 38 years, you know. But why? Just throw it in the garbage can. Jesus, pick up your mat. If he wasn't carrying around his mat, they wouldn't even notice him. This guy thinks everybody should be happy for him, but now he has new enemies. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes when Jesus comes into our lives, some things get worse, and sometimes we have enemies that we didn't have before. Why did Jesus tell him to pick up his mat? Why, I believe, is because he told him to pick up his mat because there was going to be people that he encountered that the thing that Jesus delivered him from was going to be the thing that other people identified with, and they would sit there and they would listen to his testimony. There are some things that you have wanted to leave behind, some things you don't want to talk about, some things you're like, I don't want pastors to know about this part of my life ever. And Jesus is saying, no, I want to take that and I want to use that for my good. I want to use that, those mistakes, those mess-ups, those dirty places in your lives that you're ashamed of, those things that you just wanted to leave laying right there and never think of again. I want you to pick those things up. I want you to talk about them. I want you to tell people about them. I want you to tell people how much I have changed your life and how great your life is now. I want you to carry your mat. Now, here's the thing. All of us have a mat. You're like, I don't have a mat. Were we supposed to get those at the door? That's not what I'm talking about. We all have a mat. Now, maybe your mat is sitting in your closet waiting for Monday night hot yoga. And you're like, Jimmy, we're not supposed to talk about yoga in church because we're really not sure if that's something we're supposed to do or not. We all got a mat. Now, we all have a choice. When Jesus comes in our lives and he totally changes us, when he saves us, we have a choice. We can either pick up our mat. Now, or we can make a decision. I've been carrying this around for a while, and maybe you're here. Maybe this is where you are this afternoon. And you're like, I've been carrying around for a while. I think Jesus is good. I think he's happy with that. You put down your mat and you lessen your commitment. Now, if you are a Christian and you have never lessened your commitment, welcome to the family. You must have just got saved 5 minutes ago. Because I think we've all been there. Now, this is getting hard. There's people that don't like me. People are talking about me. Maybe I'll just come to church on Sundays. Maybe I'll stop going to Bible study. Maybe nobody seems to like my videos. Maybe I'll stop being on the media team. Nobody seems to like my singing. Maybe I'll stop being on the praise team. Pastor Jimmy waves that flag better than me. Maybe I'll just not wave the flag. I've been practicing, guys. But we want to put down our mat. Hey, Jimmy. Yeah. Are those new legs? These old things? Nah, man. These aren't new legs. I've had these for a while. Yeah. Or we can make the decision that we pick up our mat, we hold it high, and we say, check out my legs. This is what Jesus has done for me. This is what a relationship with Jesus is all about. This is the things. The thing that we wanted to let go of, we pick it up, we hold it high and say, this is what Jesus has done for me. Amen. Thank you, Stacy.